Hello, class. We're going to move on to the next section here, section 1.2, which just talks a little bit about different types of data. And again, obviously, data is quite important in the statistics class. And again, this is a lot of definitions. So again, I'm going to be using more of the PowerPoint. I will upload this with the recorded lecture. So let's just walk through this. It should be a reasonably quick one. So what we're going to do is talk about three different kinds of data. The first one is qualitative versus quantitative. And then the next one is to distinguish between what's called ordinal and nominal, which, in my opinion, not that important. First one and the last one and three, actually are quite important. And then the third one is this idea between a discrete and a continuous variable. That one actually is very important. Most of the things that we're going to be doing and the analysis and calculations will be of quantitative variables where there is some sort of number associated. And qualitative would be something that would be a classification. And so the way I remember this is quantity has that N in it. You see Quant. So the idea of quantity has a number associated with it. So that's kind of a little way that I remember the difference between the two. So here's a few examples. So a person's age is quantitative. There is a number associated with it. The idea of a person's gender would be qualitative because it ends up being some sort of category. Like people's color of somebody's hair, that would be qualitative as well, just like the last one down there, the color of a car. And the one that would be the second one from the bottom, the mileage in your car, again, it's a number associated with it. So that would be a quantitative value. The next thing that we're going to quickly just chat about a little bit is this idea of a qualitative variable splitting into two more different style categories. One is ordinal, which would have some sort of natural order. And one would be nominal, where there's really no order. And I'll go through a couple of examples, but when I read this, I was like, I never really used this. But I never really used a lot of qualitative variables in my lifetime doing any type of analysis. But the first thing that came to mind is nominal would be a color, right? Because a color really doesn't have any natural order with regard to that. But I was thinking that, when you go to, say, McDonald's and you wanted to buy a soda, and what they have 5 different sizes of the soda, for example, small, medium, large, extra large, even though that those aren't numbers, they do have some sort of natural order. So that's what we mean, kind of the difference between the two. And so here's a couple examples that the book had. Again, they had the soft drink one at the bottom, which is what came to mind when I was reading this. Letter grades is another one where A, B, C, D, and F doesn't have a number associated with it, so it would be qualitative, but it does have some sort of order. Where this was interesting, the state of residence. So the state really doesn't have any natural order, but I thought about that a little bit, and I said you could argue that if you wanted to put it in alphabetical order, it might have some sort of order. So again, in the grand scheme of things, not a really important idea, but I think you'll see one question on Alex on this, and you won't see this part of it on a quiz or an exam. But the first one, yes, and this one, definitely yes. Now we're getting back to the quantitative and being able to split quantitative or numbers up into two different buckets. the first bucket of discrete variables, and the second one, what we call continuous variables. Now, a discrete variable is something that you can actually count. That's kind of the best way. What it says listed there, what I like to think about it is you can count the variables. Where a continuous variable, really you can't count. It ends up being inside what we call an interval in the math terms with regard to that. So if you remember your algebra a little bit, and I'll just pull up the whiteboard here for a quick second. So if you remember, if you talked a little bit about algebra, why doesn't the whiteboard come up when I click that? But I always have to do it twice. So you remember we had numbers called natural numbers, right? If you remember the number line, we could say that is a number, say, from 0, and then the next number is 1, 2, 3. We use the term integers as well. And the integers would be the negative numbers and the positive numbers. So those are discrete. Those are discrete numbers in the sense that those can be counted, in the sense that you can count to infinity, of course. But there's nothing, as you could see, in between here, right? And then we had this idea of real numbers. And real numbers are continuous numbers. And again, if we think about the number line, where here's the origin, and say, like I said, all the real numbers between 0 and 1, you really can't count those. I mean, you have 0, you have 0.1, 0.11, 0.111. You kind of get the picture. So that's what we mean is these two would be discrete up here. And this one down here would be continuous. So just going back to kind of finish this one up, here's some of the examples that the book had. So the age of a person, with the idea of listed from their birthday, again, could be counted. So that aspect would be discrete. The height of a person is variable because it could be within a range of, say, 5 feet to 6 feet. And so a good rule of thumb is that if a variable is a measurement, it's continuous. Because typically a measurement will be in between some sort of interval. The number of siblings a person has is hopefully that one's pretty obvious that that's discrete. You know, if you had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, that would be 4. Usually don't with regards to that. So those things could be counted. And here's an example of something that's measured again. Distance is measured. And so the last one here, that variable would be continuous. So that ends this hopefully quick little section with regards to that. So these are the 3 structures that we really want you to distinguish between. And again, qualitative and quantitative, super important. And maybe even more important is the taking quantitative and splitting it up into discrete and continuous. So this ends section 1-2 for us. Stay tuned for section 1-3.